Also, Cola rechts, Pommes links und in die Mitte der Burger. Und dann immer im Uhrzeigersinn. Burger, Cola, Pommes. Burger, Cola, Pommes.
Viele Rituale, ein King des Monats. Jetzt der saftig zarte Long Chicken mit großen King Pommes und Softdrink für nur 4,49 bei Burger King.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everybody, this is Amelia Suntara here, and I'd like to welcome you all to this episode on Blog Talk Radio and Conversations with Kundalini Conversations with Chrism. At this time, Chrism isn't joining us, so we are going to begin the show without him. I am hoping that those in the chat room can hear me well, and as Chrism says every week, I would really like you to write and type just to let me know that the voice is going out okay. I cannot actually begin with an Aum the way Chrism has been doing recently, but actually maybe I will. What if all of us listening on the show just begin with an Aum just to arrive into this place where we're going to share some time with each other and discuss Kundalini and discuss Kundalini Awakening and the different things that will come up for us. So I'm actually going to do an Aum, and I would invite everybody listening to do their own Aum at home. So here we go. I haven't done this for a while. So welcome everybody. For those of you who are just joining us in the chat room, hello Fatji, I see that you've just logged in. Chrism isn't with us at this time, and so I am beginning to do the show here on my own, and we will see if he's able to join us. This might not happen today on the show, but let us see how it unfolds. So I began there with an Aum and invited everybody to join in and Aum themselves. So everybody is very welcome. I'm just going to begin, as I usually do, giving the place that people can go to if they want to support Chrism in the work that he does with Kundalini Awakening Systems. As you all know, he really has a lot of venues where he provides the Kundalini teachings. He has various venues on Facebook. I cannot at this moment recall their addresses, but I will come back to it. There are various Kundalini websites that Chrism also has, and he has a lot of teachings on YouTube. He Skypes with people, he has private students. He works really 24/7 doing this work for people in a Kundalini Awakening process, and he does not work outside of that, and so is very dependent on donations, and so all donations are gratefully received. Again, there is no pressure ever on anybody to donate, but if you're in a position to do so, and if you want to do so, I'm going to give you the address now. It's www.ascension-kundalini.blogspot.com, and in the upper right-hand corner you will see the donate button, and following that it is indeed very easy. There is another way to donate, and I'm going to give you that now through snail mail. If you wanted to actually send a donation through the post, that can also be done, and it would be to Christopher Mitchell at P.O. Box 2663, Santa Rosa, California, 95405. So that's it. We will begin the show. Chrism, okay, so Chrism is my Kundalini teacher. Chrism is the Kundalini teacher for many people who listen to this show, and they have a personal teacher-student relationship with him. Some people listen to the teachings, follow some of the teachings, and take and leave various teachings as they resonate with them. For more of us, having Chrism as a Kundalini teacher has been the way that we have progressed in our Kundalini Awakening process. For myself, I had my Kundalini Awakening event, as I call it, in 2007. And it was in 2009 that I found the Kundalini Awakening Systems group on Yahoo. And that is when I came across for the first time the teachings, Chrism's teachings. And I will never forget what that was like for me, because up to that point, I was totally and absolutely on my own. First of all, for quite some time, I had no clue about Kundalini. I had no understanding. Well, I did have an understanding of what was happening to me on one level. I knew that it was divine. I knew that what was happening within me, was something extremely and amazingly beautiful. And I had many, many experiences where I was in surrender to this force, this divinity that I could feel within myself. But as time progressed, I suppose I found it more difficult. And I remember when I came, because I didn't understand the process, I didn't understand everything that was happening. And also, I have a fairly strong ego. As most of us do. I'm an independent modern woman. I do my own thing. And while I was in extreme devotion and surrender to the process, I was in joy and bliss to what was happening within me, there were other times when it was extremely difficult because I was experiencing such change in my body. Sometimes when great light comes, and that's what happens with Kundalini, and also, the shadow can grow. And so, I would have been in devotion to my Kundalini, but I also would have been in conflict because it was very difficult. So when I came across the teachings of Chrism in the written format for the very first time on Yahoo, it was like the sun came out. It was just amazing, because on that group, I saw for the very first time that other people, men and women, ordinary people like myself, had also experienced amazing and incredible experiences that nowhere else had I seen this being written about. And so it was such an affirmation for me to read about things like Kriyas, to even come across what the name Kriya. I had no background in yoga. I had never done yoga. I had no connection with any Eastern philosophies. I didn't meditate. Now, I certainly had a connection with God. I was all the time, seeking the truth, but I didn't have an Eastern type connection there. And so I had no clue about Kriyas or yoga. And I used to wake up finding myself in very strange positions and knowing that this was okay because it felt so right to me, but not understanding why this was occurring. So it was amazing to me to find that everything, and I mean everything at that stage that I had experienced, I was reading about in Chrism's teachings. I had also come across, in my own experience, the extreme fear, extreme surrender, I had experienced a lot of these things, the polarities of things really, the polarity of love and fear. And for me, just at the time of finding Chrism's website, I was on a cusp, the Kundalini led me there because I was looking at that choice of fear and love. I knew that both were there for me, and I had been in such a place of fear for such a long time, while also knowing about that amazing love. I knew I was at a crossroads in my life, and Kundalini led me to this website and to Chrism, who was to become my teacher. And I remember, so I joined the website, I think it was in June 2009, and I was thrilled. But I can remember it was probably my second or third, probably was my second or third post. And I can remember writing, there was some discussion going on about having I suppose you'd say, an in-flesh or a teacher in the physical. And there was some discussion going on about that and the merits of that and whether it was a good idea and all that sort of thing. And I can remember, writing how I would definitely resist, having a teacher or submitting, submitting to a teacher because, would I need a specific teacher or would I just continue on with myself and my Kundalini with the group that I had just discovered? I can remember writing about that. And I can also remember saying at the time how I really wouldn't want to surrender completely to a teacher in the way that I had read about because I was having such difficulty surrendering to the Kundalini. And that was where I began my journey towards having a Kundalini teacher. I'm going to just ask people who are listening, Fashti or anybody else that is in the guest room, or Eileen or Rosemary, we will discuss this in a minute, what it is to have Chrism specifically as our Kundalini teacher. But I'll just go on a little bit more maybe and speak again a little bit about myself. Like at the beginning of my awakening, there was a huge shift in my whole life. I mean, nothing was ever the same after the Kundalini awakened. And I knew from the very, very beginning that what was happening to me required a surrender from me, that I was able to give for a time, particularly at the beginning, when I was feeling the love and the bliss and everything was incredible. As time moved on, I suppose I also had an experience of, long ago when you read about, in Ireland particularly anyway, we had a lot of hermits and holy men. And I know it was the same in India, and I'm sure in lots of other countries, the places where you're living, you probably know of such people from ancient times and long ago. Hermits and monks and nuns and saints that left society and went away to be on their own. And I can really remember, and it's not that it's totally vanished in me, but I can remember the pull to wanting to do that. I longed to just live my life with this divinity, with this amazing thing that was happening with me. It was very difficult at times to also live the mundane life. And so this would be going on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. There would be pulls into depression. There would be pulls up into the most amazing bliss. So it was very, it was not easy. Let me put it like that. I knew that I wasn't supposed to leave my family and all of that. And so I suppose that was part of my process, again, coming into the Yahoo group, reading the teachings, they resonating with me, and saying, I don't really want a teacher, and yet finding that what, Chrism was offering in his teachings and what he was actually offering as a teacher really spoke to me. I could feel my Kundalini guiding me to open myself to actually having Chrism as my teacher. And although there was resistance at the beginning from that part of me who definitely didn't want to go there, I knew that Chrism, after a very short time, I knew that I would want Chrism to become my teacher. And it's very important, I think, there's no such a thing. Well, I'll check. There's no such a thing, as the perfect teacher. I mean, I think the perfect teacher is probably about as common as the perfect husband, which, of course, let me just say, my husband is. He's listening upstairs. Hi, John. He's listening upstairs. But, and yet my John is the perfect husband for me, and Chrism has been the perfect Kundalini teacher for me. It has been an amazing journey for me in my process with Chrism as my teacher for the last couple of years, towards the end of 2009, 2010, when I met him for the first time, 2011, 2012, 2013, and right into this year. And so that's just very quickly, really, how my process has occurred with since the beginning of my awakening and up to this point with having Chrism as my teacher. And I suppose as well, over that period of time, there have often been a lot of discussion about, particularly in the West, we're quite resistant to people who have a student-teacher relationship or that particular model. And, even the word teacher, guru, master has connotations that, people have difficulty with. The Irish word actually for teacher is bóistir, which means master. And yes, there are a lot of, those words trigger things in people, particularly in the West, and they have great difficulty with that. Also, I suppose sometimes, people have said to me, well, if you're in, a student-teacher relationship, you're not taking responsibility for yourself. If you're surrendered to a teacher, where's your responsibility? And it can be very difficult to explain to people that in actual fact, by actually becoming the student and by giving of that surrender to my teacher, that is stepping into the most self-responsible thing that I have ever done with regard to my Kundalini Awakening process. There's amazing gifts of, grace and transmission that flow between a teacher and a student. And one of the things that Chrism as my teacher insists on, or is part of it, is the obligation that I have as a student to serve everything in life, serve the teacher, serve my family, serve our fellow creatures. And that has been a wonderful part of the experience of being Chrism's student, how that expansion in my surrender to Kundalini, in my surrender to my teacher, his teachings for me, has spilled out into my everyday life and has created it has totally changed how I now live my life. And we can talk a little bit later about the safeties, because those are the cornerstone really of Chrism's teachings, not just if you are wanting to have a Kundalini awakening, because these safeties are a platform. I mean, if you do not have an awakening and you begin to practice these safeties, they can of themselves begin the Kundalini to awaken with the Kundalini awakening within you. But when the Kundalini is awakened, and my experience has been practicing the safeties there are so many aspects. They bring balance when one is unbalanced, and they are the very things that help me to live my life as a student, not just a student of Chrism, because I'm a student or a child of the Kundalini. And having Chrism as my teacher is like having the Kundalini, in a way, speak to me with a voice, because sometimes it's not that easy, like surrender really means, again, it comes in different levels. There are different, what is surrender? Surrender to me, okay, from the point of view, let's say, of my Kundalini process, surrender would mean that I would totally and really let go of my desires, or of the expectations I would have, the expectations of control over the infusions and the process that I am experiencing. Not to have expectations about that, not to have any expectations around what is happening in my body, what is happening in terms, to surrender all of that. And that has been an amazing gift, to come into an understanding of what surrender is, because it's in letting go that we receive. And it's in letting go in that way to completely surrender those desires and expectations of control. That has been, that opens up, and that creates a completely different environment, for me anyway, in the context of the Kundalini Awakening. It has been an amazing journey. I suppose, devotion has also been very, very important to me, and to be in a devotional state for the Kundalini. It has been, from the very beginning, that this has been important. And I do see the teacher, I do see my teacher as, I suppose, an embodiment, a divine embodiment, but know that I realize completely that, it's to the divine. It's the divine that receives my devotion. It is not the flesh teacher. It is the divine. But having my teacher with me has been the most amazing blessing, and has been the most amazing bridge into that area of my surrender and of my giving myself to the divine that is within me. The kingdom of God is within us, and when Kundalini awakens, we realize this, and it totally changes our lives. So, okay, I'm probably after talking enough. So I'm going to go over here and see Rosemary is online, so I'm going to say she's on the phone. So, hi, Rosemary.
Hi there, Amelia. Thank you.
Hi, you're very welcome. Good to hear you. Do you want to jump straight in maybe and talk about this, and we can speak a little bit later about the seminars?
Sure. Maybe keep an eye, and I won't, but maybe 5 or 6 minutes. If it gets more than that, just let me know.
Okay.
And what I would say when you left me that email message was, I surely can share my experience. Powerful. It's a privilege, first of all. And there's beeping noise. Amelia, has that happened?
I lost you there for a moment, Rose. It's like you went in and out, but I can hear you again now. It was like...
Maybe that's what the beep's about. I haven't touched anything on my phone here. But
no worries. Technical difficulties are part. Just continue on, because sometimes that's not heard in the actual archive. So let's just ignore that sort of thing and continue on and just talk away, Rosemary.
Thank you. So it is a privilege and an honor to have him as my teacher, to be a student, and it's very sacred for me. And it came about because I was in his seminar, and I asked if I could be his student, and I had really no idea what it would mean. context I have had as a member of a religious community, as a sister. I have had spiritual directors, and there was always a woman in the community in the house that we lived in who was in charge and to look out for things. And I think the direction really came from the community living itself. A lot of things were not ever spoken, but people lived them, and that was how the spiritual direction occurred, or the clergy in my life and the sacrament of confession. So a lot of experiences, and nothing like this, nothing as important to me as this, and nothing as powerful and as demanding, and mostly because it really does touch the deepest part of me, and it's serious. It is serious. It's not like serious in the sense of not light sometimes, but it is a greater depth. And I was thinking of it a few minutes ago when I had a spiritual director or a guidance counselor. I was directly paying for that, and so I surely wanted to get my money's worth there, and I think I would listen to people because that was part of it. So when I think of Chrism's dedication to us and to me, and I know in my life there is nobody who has ever been, and I had a delightful, wonderful, loving husband who is as committed to me and my spiritual growth than he is. My Kundalini is for sure and provides his guidance for me, but there is no human being in my life that has ever had this commitment. And for no matter what it feels like, and sometimes it doesn't feel comfortable, and sometimes it's very hard on the particulars that are given things for me to practice. But it is, I know that it is what is designed for me and makes my path possible. And I know as well as my teacher, he is, I want to say it's kind of an odd way to say it, but he is a partner with my Kundalini, or he is maybe the spokesperson from my Kundalini. When I was there at the ashram, especially January through March there, he told me several times that he was given direction from my Kundalini on how to work with me and what to ask of me, so that it's not just his way deciding for me, and I know that. So it's very sacred. And the part of the ego and the necessity of the ego dying, that's happens along the way. It's a major piece, and I couldn't really say how I'm doing with that, but I know I'm doing better than I had in the beginning. And I know as well, I was thinking, for when there is this communication with him now, and sometimes I could reach him, sometimes not, and sometimes I have questions, but there are times, too, when things don't work out as he and I talked about, or something else comes up, and I can ask, and I can say, could we talk about that again? And so I am a part of, as the student, I have input as well, but not the primary source. And I guess that's the most important thing to me, that he is guided, he is blessed. I haven't a clue about this path, and I'm amazed when people will ask me now when I'm doing this work, talking about the seminar coming, and how did you get there? I've said it before, I just saw an article in the Edge magazine, I saw a picture in a film session, I went, and Eileen had the film, and we talked a little bit, but I don't remember anything really striking, so I was just being led, and very grateful for the whole process. And I thought about all the behavioral safeties. Certainly with the teacher, there's opportunities for all of those, an opportunity to practice and the refinement that a teacher provides in our lives. So I think, Amelia, that's about what I would want to say for now. And the only place that I really ever talk about this is here. funny. I mean, it. Some people know this, and I think they may misjudge it, but there's nothing I can do about that. Someone said to me, well, your friend Chrism, and I corrected her, and I said, he's my teacher.
Yes,
but I don't, yep, people don't have the context for what that is, or they think it's some goofy blindness, or I don't know. People who know me really would tell you that I'm not given to blind obedience to anything.
Well, I agree with you that my friends, really just one friend, but my family are aware of that, and they know quite well that is the case with me as well. So yeah, people don't understand, and that's okay. It doesn't bother me anymore. I think initially it did. I would try and explain to people, outside of the Kundalini Awakening context, what it was like. And it's pretty impossible because you get pulled into all kinds of detours. I came from a Christian, like yourself, a Catholic background where in Ireland there was blind obedience to the Catholic Church and all that sort of thing. And so people are very, very resistant to any form of I suppose, following, And so I just disengage now from that. I will only speak about it with people who are interested, and I'm going to assume people listening to this are, Rosemary. And so I'm quite happy to talk about it in this forum. If my older children were here, my older kids, like my daughter Helene, who is home from New Zealand, she's aware, for example, as of course is my husband John, that Chrism is my teacher, and we discussed that, and I've discussed it with my other daughter, who's 30 as well, and they have an understanding of it now that is very, very different to how they would have seen it before, because they know me. They know me. I'm their mom. They've lived with me always. They know about my Kundalini. They know about me having a teacher. They know that I follow instructions, and that Chrism's teachings are such a pivotal, crucial part of my life. I mean, really very, very sacred. I like that word, Rosemary, because that's how it is for me too. And my husband also knows of this, that Chrism is my teacher, that Chrism is my Kundalini Awakened teacher, and it's wonderful in the context of my everyday life now how this is just a normal and natural part of it. And it's good for us, I think, to be able to speak about it here and share of that with people who have an interest, and give our perspective and our experience of what that's like for us. Because when you experience the authentic and beautiful connection and growth that has happened, you would wish that other people would have this too, if it is for them to have. Do you know, Rosemary?
Yes.
I mean, that's also part of the process. So in actually speaking about this, that's why I'm doing it. I want people to know that to have a teacher is a joyful celebration. That said, exactly as you said, sometimes it's not easy. Over the years, there's been tears, there's been false projections, there's been difficulty, and the whole time Chrism has been there, the whole time. And, as a student, you evolve and you learn on a parallel with your Kundalini, if that makes sense. There was one thing, I suppose, Rosemary, you mentioned about the ego dying. Would you say that it's more that the ego is being re-educated? That in the things that we do, such as, let's say, the safeties, for example, and the safeties for people who just are listening and aren't aware of them, are a set of protocols that Chrism has, such as trust, surrender, devotion, prayer, love, service, these are the things that we commit to, really, to bringing as a daily practice into our lives. There are other parts of it too. We do the Tibetans and other things. But in doing those things, what we're actually doing is, in my experience, is we're re-educating our ego. Because if we're practicing something like tolerance, and this is something Chrism, has had me work on, my tolerance. If we're practicing tolerance and the ego is going, and doesn't, we are educating the ego. We are educating the ego into a different way of being present in our lives. If we are practicing service, or if we are practicing other things, we are re-educating the ego. So the ego changes from all the years of conditioning that it has had, all the years of, in a way, having control over things. That's being taken away from it, and it's being re-educated to respond in different ways. So it's a little bit like Steve, who actually isn't in the chat room today, but he usually is, but he's traveling at the moment. Steve wrote something on the group about, today I think somebody, a neighbour or somebody he met was very, very angry with him. And Steve stood there and let's call the safety, a toolbox, Kundalini toolbox, and he took out, tolerance and kindness and love. And in that moment of the neighbour, ranting and raving and being very angry, he responded in those ways. But he was certainly, re-educating his ego, because his ego did not want to be doing that. It wanted to respond in a very different way. And so, by having a teacher, by having these teachings, we are committing ourselves in a very, definite way to participate in our surrender to the divine, to our teacher, to this whole process. So, how do you find practicing the safeties, Rosemary? I mean, do you...
Yes. Let me go back to what I said about death to the ego. The Kundalini film that I'm showing, and I've seen it a good number of times by now, that's one of the sections of the death of the ego. And that's what the word that they use. I think it has to be death to the imagined power that the ego thinks it has. Because it's how I live my life normally, to manage things and manage even the good things in my life and manage my promises and like that. So, but the safety, I was thinking I would like to share one example of what being a student of Chrism that I experienced when I came back home. And I'm not sure if I've shared this before, but in the beginning months, the first two, it was very difficult to me to be obedient in the way in which he was expecting it, and just as something immediate. And my immediate response wasn't yes. It was, I was in my head imagining, how would I do this? Should I do this? And what happens? And my mind would be busy, busy, busy. And he's expecting to hear me say, yes, I'll do that. And that wasn't working. And it got a little better, I would say, but not to the degree that I wanted, or he either. However, when I got home, I found that I had learned something very profound like this. I had been in Pilates classes for probably, 4 or 5 years now, and my last class was the middle of December. Because of the schedule, that was the last one. I came back from Santa Rosa the end of March, and I didn't get back there to a class till middle of April. So that's those 4 months, no class. And I went into the class saying, this is going to be hard. I'm not going to be able to do this. It's going to be like starting all over again, and all that chatter. And throughout the class, I did really well. I did well, and it didn't hurt, nothing hurt. I did all the exercises, and the person beside me just smiled, and she commented about how well I was doing, and I drove away, and I said, what happened? Well, what happened is that I was able to simply take what the teacher said to do. My body was obeying. My body was doing what was needed. It didn't hurt. I was able to do it. In the past, my mind was my ego mind was just doing its little routine of, I don't want to do that one, that hurts. Why are we doing that again? All of that. But that was gone. My body, my mind learned something that I didn't even know I knew now, but was the result of being there and being his student and day-to-day, side-by-side with him and being corrected. And that was really a huge gift for me and being a student.
Excellent. Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you for that. One of the things, I suppose, we're talking, about what it's like for us, and I have felt this as well, and I'll just share it. I have felt that, it's difficult for us as students sometimes in the way that you're saying, the mind is doing whatever, and it's not that easy. But I think it must also be difficult for the teacher because, I know down the road now how much Chrism gives, he actually gives everything to the students, and when he began this work with me, I see now that he took a huge, he placed great faith, not in me, but faith in my Kundalini, definitely not in my personality. My ego, because, I suppose a teacher really can't trust the ego of the student, but I know that Chrism placed huge faith and trust on that which is within me, the Kundalini, that knew that I was moving towards, that I wanted the truth, and that Chrism could help me with. And so, I have great respect and admiration and gratitude for the fact that along the way, I have no doubt it has also at times been difficult for my teacher. And I'm very grateful for all that he has done with regard to that. I can see that Vashti is actually there, so maybe later on, Vashti, you might give a call in. Eileen is here, and I'm going to speak with her now. But Vashti, maybe you might ring in and contribute. It would be great to hear you. So, Rosemary, before I go over to Eileen, would you like to give the details of the seminar?
Certainly. The seminar, Chrism seminar in Minnesota, St. Paul side of the river, is September 27th and 28th, 9 to 5 on those days. My phone number, 651-452-3161, Rosemary G, usinternet.com. And also, Eileen can tell you of a couple other places that we have to go on Facebook to see about this. So, Eileen, if you could tell that on what you have to say, too.
Okay, excellent. I'll remind Eileen of that. She can pass that information on in a minute. So how long more is it? It's less than 2 months now, Rosemary, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
probably about 7.
Well, for the listeners who are listening, if any of you are in a position, if you hear that information and as we're talking, if you're considering maybe, I wonder, what would it be like to go to a seminar, I would suggest that you open to that and see, allow that come through and answer that call and go and contact Rosemary, because Rosemary, you can answer all questions, can't you? That come,
yes.
and give people all the information. So
Yes.
yeah, cool. Okay. Thanks, Rosemary. So I'll come back to you again later. I'm going to go over to Eileen now. And here she is. Hi, Eileen.
Hi, Amelia.
Do you want to go straight into the Facebook information, seeing as we're talking about the seminar?
Yes. What I have pulled up here, the URL is just way too long to read, but the name of the Facebook page is Kundalini Seminars and Events with Chrism. And that's the main page, and there's information there. Kundalini Seminars and Events with Chrism. And then on that page, the seminar is listed. There's a separate event page for the seminar, and there are 2 event pages for talks that Chrism will be doing. He'll be in Minnesota the week before the seminar, and we've scheduled him for about 3 to 4, maybe 5 talks around the Twin City area. And so people can come and meet him, and if they're interested in coming to the seminar, that's fine. But if not, just come and meet him and listen to his talk. I've been to many. I know Amelia has been to many. And each one is unique. And each one I learned so much because it's an ongoing, just like the Kundalini is ever-changing and ongoing and always growing. It's the same with the talks. The talks, even though he may say the same thing sometimes, I know for me, I'm at a different place each time, so I receive the information on a different level. So the name, I'm going to say it one more time, Kundalini Seminars and Events with Chrism, if you wanted to check that page out. And did Rosemary give her email? I didn't hear her email.
She did, but give it again there. No harm in doing it again.
It's rosemaryg@usinternet.com. rosemaryg@usinternet.com. And she will be more than happy to answer questions and give you the information that you need if you're interested in the seminar.
Excellent. Can I just ask you, Eileen, because I've been on and I've seen that Facebook page, the word "and" isn't spelt. It's the symbol for "and," I think. Is it?
Right. It's not spelled out. But even if they were just put Kundalini Seminars, I'm sure it would bring it up.
Okay, so it's Kundalini Seminars and Events with Chrism, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Eileen. And we'll maybe give that information out again just towards the end of the show. So if anybody listening wants to grab a biro, we will, or a pen, I should say, we will give that information out again later on before we finish the show. So, Eileen, I think you are possibly, I was going to say the oldest student, but the student who is the longest. The longest running student. Am I correct in that? I think you are, actually, because you certainly have
Well, there are students who have been around. They just aren't as verbal, as vocal, or present as I am. My awakening, or not my awakening, my activation. I haven't had an awakening yet. It's an activation. Was actually in 2006, 2007. And I had no clue. I didn't even know I had never heard the word. And in 2007, I just was drawn to start looking for a teacher. And I don't know why, because I've never had a teacher. I'm like you. I've never done yoga. I haven't followed anyone. I did not do a lot of reading. I was raised Catholic like you, so our backgrounds are very similar. And so I was very devotional to my faith when I was younger, and then in high school I kind of stepped away from it because it just didn't work for me anymore. And so I hadn't really been doing anything. And I found Chrism on the Internet, and I knew I don't know how I knew, but my Kundalini was guiding me, obviously. I didn't know that at the time. But I just knew that I needed to read his teachings and to work with him. And I go to what I always say, I was drawn and pulled to support and to work with him. And to not just support him, but the program. And so that's how it started for me. And I was very drawn to his teachings, his writings. And I really, to this day, I enjoy reading and rereading and hoping that soon he will have some books available because I feel that the teachings are very practical for everyone. He writes, and I'm going to talk a little bit about his writings because that's very important to me. He writes in what I say a simplistic, complex manner. And by that I mean his writings are very easily understood, and the complexity comes in the depth of the teachings. And the compression teachings is what he calls it, where wherever you are, if you read one article, something will resonate with you. Then the next time you read it, you'll be in a different place, and something else will resonate with you, or it'll be a deeper resignation. So it's the writings that I'm very drawn to. And then when I made that decision that I wanted a teacher, I literally packed up my stuff and I went out to California to be near him. And the whole process in this last 7 years has not been easy, as both of you have said. It's been very difficult for me, and it still is on some level. But all that happened in the last 7 years, I know has brought me where I am. And yes, I'd like to be further along than I am, but I'm a slow learner, I say. I don't really try to analyze things. I just I really want to just accept what comes and not clutter my mind and not ask a lot of questions and just let it come as it comes. And that's the way I'm handling it. Other people handle it in different ways. But being with Chrism has been for me a very unique experience. And I agree with what both of you have said. He's very dedicated. He always says that you're not being devotional to him. You're being devotional to your Kundalini and to his Kundalini. And I have something here. I don't know if I hope I can find it now. I had brought up something that I wanted to read. Now it's not.
No worries. Take your time. It'll come.
Okay. I found it. Can I read this?
Yes. Go ahead.
It's not too long, but it's written by Chrism, and this just is, I think, a very good way to explain what we're trying to talk about here. And this is from Chrism. We are guided to specific teachers to receive what we need with regards to our own spiritual platform and development. We are guided by our own spiritual process towards teachers who can help us in the many different ways that they do. We always have choice, and we always have our own inner power and sanctuary to discern the actions of any teacher that we are interacting with. Kundalini is in charge. And through that divine instruction, we are not led astray. We are indeed given the strength, energy, and determination to chart out our own gifts and our own inner information, merging those with our teacher in a way that can only assist and combine with the greater force of the Kundalini divine. And that was written by Chrism, and I think that kind of says, how he looks at a student-teacher relationship. It's Kundalini to Kundalini is another way that he has put it. And both you and Rosemary have said that, possibly in different ways. And I'm very grateful that I met Chrism. I'm very grateful for the time he has spent and the teachings that he has given me. And I'm not anywhere near where other people are, but then it's not a good thing to compare. So I feel like
we're all in unique places, aren't we? We're all in our own unique places.
And the thing for me, in all this 7 years, I have not had anywhere near the phenomena and the events that other people have had. And yet I feel I understand what they are and how they work. Like you mentioned Kriyas. I had never heard of a Kriya, but because of being part of Chrism's groups, I understand what a Kriya is. Now, I've had just a smidgen of one, but I've never had what you said you had. But to me, it doesn't matter. And I really feel that so many of the issues that people are dealing with, because they've shared them, because I have read about them, especially in his teachings, if something were to come up, like I have energy moving now more than I've ever had in my body, and it doesn't bother me. I understand it, and everything that happens to me or that comes to me, I don't question it anymore. I have to remind myself sometimes, this is Kundalini. Everything has Kundalini significance. To me, everything. And I just have to remind myself. But now there was a point I was going to make, and I've lost it, but that's okay. I just am not. Come back. I don't have all the events and phenomena, but it's so nice to read about something and actually know what they're talking about. And the other thing for me that's happened, I feel my intuition has been tuned or refined to the point where when I read something, I read in between the lines on a post. Someone will write something, and I'm reading the words, but I'm picking up something else. And I find it interesting, and it just helps me understand what they're going through and what has been happening. And I don't feel I have the fear or will have the fear that many people encounter, because if I were to go into a full-fledged, what I call hardcore Kriya, I'm going to know what it is. It makes a big difference. So even if people are interested in activation, they aren't there yet or don't know if they're there, by reading and sharing, it makes such a difference, because this is still rare. It's not a gift that's activated in every one time. I think there are more and more people becoming activated, but the group, Chrism's main group and the other groups are growing phenomenally, and I think that says something about the fact that the universe is calling to people and wanting people to go through this evolution, and it's giving them, or giving us and everybody, means to understand what's going on, and I feel that's with his group. I don't know any other teacher on the web. Well, I should say maybe there might be one other one that I've heard about or read about that does a personal student-teacher situation. Most of them, it's all large groups. There isn't that personal interaction, that personal relationship, which I feel for me was very important. And you can just go in the groups and read, and that will give you much information and understanding. But then if you want something more personal and you want to work more what's the word I want, sincerely maybe, then, Chrism is open to that. And I have seen...
Yes, you can come on the groups and read the groups and learn from the teachings without, having Chrism become your teacher. And a lot of people do that and receive much benefit from it. But please come to the groups. Do you actually happen to have the addresses, Eileen? I'm not great on recall. If in a minute, would you mind getting up the addresses, and we'll give them towards the end of the show as well, if that's okay with you?
I'll give the names of the Facebook groups because the URLs are just way too long.
All right. That's okay. Yeah.
Thank you for letting me
One of the great things about the groups is that on the groups you can connect in and share with other people who are going through the process and know that Chrism oversees the groups and is very committed to keeping the groups in a Kundalini Awakening process. That's what the groups really are all about, okay? Yes, go ahead.
I want to say one more thing about the groups that I think is very important, and I've seen it over the years. Chrism comes at the Kundalini from a positive, love, service-based platform. He is not interested in promoting fear, which so many other groups I feel do and other people do. He's not interested in that. He works very diligently to keep the group on a positive mindset. And I guess that's, wouldn't you agree, Amelia?
I would agree. Indeed, I certainly would agree. I would. And I have Suka here on in the chat room, and Suka comes and joins us every week. I missed you there for a couple of weeks, Suka, but it's lovely to see you coming every week. And Suka has made a text conversation for us, so thank you, and I'm going to read that out now. And Suka says, I haven't met Chrism yet, but I'm very much attracted to his teachings. I like his way of teaching. He is quite down to earth, not sitting on a cloud. He doesn't want to be adored. He gives me the feeling that he is one of us, and it is nice that there is no focus on money. I agree with you completely, Suka. Thank you very, very much for that, and I hope one day you do meet Chrism. I have a caller, Eileen, and I think it may be Julie, so I'm going to put you there. I'm going to put you on blue.
Thank you.
Okay, this is responding slowly. Okay, I'm going over. Hello?
Hello.
Am I speaking with Julie?
Yes, you are.
Hi, Julie. I think this is my first time hearing your actual voice. Hi.
Hello.
You're very
friendly today.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's lovely. Julie joins us every week in the chat room as well, and it's like on a Wednesday now. What time is it there with you? It's early enough, isn't it, in the day?
It's
not
7 p.m. 7 p.m.
7 p.m. So every week we kind of gather at this time live in the chat room, and it's really lovely to see the same people gathering and listening to Chrism as he speaks. So Julie, in the conversation we've been having, I know that you are a student of Chrism's now. So hi, welcome. Thank you for calling in. I'll let you begin. I won't ask you any questions, but, maybe just tell us something about what it's like now that you're a student of Chrism's, what has changed, or whatever you like.
What's changed is my willingness to participate in my practice. Fear has changed. I've been very fearful. I get some phenomena, and I've always tried to keep that away. And it's like the more I tried to keep it away, the more it would come. And just I was kind of like chasing my tail all the time, I guess you could say. And I don't do that anymore. It's more of a forward and continuing to go forward instead of back and forth, going forward. It was kind of, I go forward maybe 2 steps, go back about 5.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
So,
that gets exhausting.
I kind of have to tend to agree when Chrism talks about his own awakening. He did a lot of fighting, and
yes.
He talks about how it was rough, and I would say that probably would fit how things have gone for me.
Okay.
So having him as a teacher has been a blessing because I can relate to that aspect, and it helps me to trust more because that's kind of one of the things too. I got to a point where I didn't trust anybody anymore. So it's helped me. It's helped me a lot.
Oh, well, thank you for saying. Did you find it difficult? I mean, can you say something about, were you in resistance to having a teacher, or did you connect right away?
Because I've always done it on my own. I've done it on my own.
Yeah.
I've always been someone who just did it on my own, and I have from a very early age. I've always been on my own. And that's one of the things I've always resented, not trust people. Growing up, I've just come across a lot of people, and not very helpful. Well, they're all helpful, I guess. I can't say, they're not helpful, but
yeah. Well, I can relate to that.
So I was in a lot of resistance. I found Chrism probably, I think, in 2009.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And so I've just, recently became the student within this past year. Maybe the end of last year. So I don't think I've been a full student of his for a full year yet. I've been working, one of those workers and readers and listeners and things like that. So it took me a long time to break down and then come to him personally.
And it has changed, and you're so glad to have Juliet. It's from what you're saying, it has made a difference. I mean, that one aspect alone, for the fear to have changed, that was something for me as well. That was, made a huge difference. It makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
Huge. Mm-hmm, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's bigger than huge.
Yeah. And it's hard to explain to people, unless they have had that fear, unless you've lived with that fear, what it is like to live without it, to have that absence, to move into, isn't it?
It's a freedom that it's undescribable. It's an undescribable freedom. It's like a weight lifted. Gone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. So, I mean, that one aspect alone, it's just so much to be grateful for in that. What about, can you say, if it's okay with you, a little bit about your, the will, you said, I think, your willingness to participate in a practice. Was it in your practice?
I'm not a churchgoer. I'm not affiliated with any religion. I never have been. So I've not really been one to do much of any kind of practice. Mm-hmm. It's not anything that I grew up with. It's not anything that was enforced on me. It's not that I didn't believe in God. I did. But I guess I've just lived, I lived more selfishly, I guess. And I lived in anger at God, with God, for a very long time, very, very long time. And I realize now everything was for the best. And, Chrism's helped me. His teachings have helped for me to realize that, he mentions a lot of times, we're not the victim, not a victim. Mm. And that's completely true.
Yeah. That changes. That changes things, doesn't it?
Mhm. And this is spilled over into my family.
Say something about that, Julie.
So many things going on right now. I think I'd probably be extremely overwhelmed and probably go back into my old ways if I wasn't a student of Chrism right now. To be honest, with everything that's going on, there's a lot. But
that's hugely important. I think what you just said there, because that would be my experience as well. And
there's financial aspects, there is employment aspects, there are personal, aspects with the children. There's three things right there. That are just kind of right now,
Okay. And the practice, are you including the safeties and all of that within the context of the practice? Yeah.
Yep, the safeties. I have mantras and I practice yoga on top of the safeties and the Tibetans. The Tibetans. Now, let me tell you, can I tell you a story about this?
Oh, please do.
This is brilliant. I think you probably remember, and some of the other cast members are going to, that I've had lower back problems. It's something that keeps reoccurring. I've asked for healing for that and before. And just really lots of problems with the lower back, to the point where I was, I think this might have been about the time that I came to Chrism. As a matter of fact, I had gotten bedridden and started working with him on not only, doing the safeties and the practices and lots of forgiveness, lots of forgiveness. And then I started doing the Tibetans, and I will tell you I was scared to do them because it seemed like anything I ever did to try to help alleviate the back issue would make it worse. And I was in a lot of fear about that, but I went ahead and I did it, and I kept consistent with it. And to be honest with you, I no longer have any kind of back pain. The funny thing is I do have a protrusion, and this is something that I kept talking to Chrism about, which is why I was in a lot of fear. It's like I have an injury. I seriously do have an injury to the lower part of my back. Mm-hmm. So I have this protrusion, and people have felt it, and they're like, "Wow!" And they're like, "How are you even walking right now?" And I don't have any pain. There's no pain. It's gone.
Thank you, Julie. That is a beautiful example of that's beautiful. Wow.
It does come back, and let me tell you, when it comes back, it's because I'm not necessarily being consistent with my practice or doing the Tibetan. Okay. It's when I start slacking, and it does come back. Yes.
Yeah, it's like a communication of resistance going on, Julie.
Yes, it is. It's I'm resisting, and my my Kundalini is saying, you know what?
Yeah.
No, you're not.
I remember.
No, you're not.
Yeah. I can totally relate to that. I have some stuff in my body that it's a communication between me and my Kundalini as well. That is fantastic. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I'm sure listeners who also are working with Chrism will relate to their own aspects of similar things, and people who haven't will probably be quite amazed at that. And the surrender that we give to our teacher is the surrender we're really giving to our Kundalini, isn't it, Julie? Yeah.
And I would suggest to anybody that's having trouble with any kind of surrender, just put your trust. It's a trust. Just let go and just trust.
Surrender isn't an act of weakness, really. Yeah?
No, it's not a weakness. It's not.
No, it's our submission. It's actually, it's not relinquishing anything. It's an expression of what you're saying, trust, it's complete self-responsibility, really. And that it's a step into all of that, isn't it? And that's what it is. So, yeah. So, fantastic. I love it. Anything else, Julie, that you'd like to share about being a student, or that you have? Tell me a little bit, if you will, about your family, because you have a husband and children like I have as well. So, how has becoming a student, of Chrism impacted or affected that?
Well, in several ways, really. My stepdaughter, she's not mine, but she definitely has been having some phenomena of her own. Her and I have had some discussions this summer, actually, a lot of spiritual discussions. And I actually introduced her to Kundalini a couple of weeks ago for her to do some research. My husband, I believe him to be active as well. I always have. Since we met, I believe that is one of the reasons why we even met.
Yeah.
Things just kind of, they seem to fall into place at some point. And that was one of the things that just fell into place. He doesn't do any kind of practice, and he's even said to me personally, he's met Chrism, he's talked to him. But he said to me personally, he doesn't want a teacher. He wants to do it on his own. He wants to do it on his own.
John is upstairs, Julie, and he's going snow.
So we all know how that kind of goes down the hill, don't we? I mean, yes, I have Chrism as a teacher, but I'm also living with these people here in this home. So whatever I'm being taught, they are also being taught through me, through Chrism, through me, to them. So in a sense, they all have a teacher, and it all stems from Chrism. So they see me do my practice. I was keeping it to myself. But over the past month, I have been more open with my practice in front of my family members. My son will do the Tibetans with me at times, and also yoga. My stepdaughter, we just basically talk about phenomena because that seems to be what's going on with her. So she's always asking me, what's going on with this and what's going on with this. And,
that's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. I do the Tibetans with my son as well. And I love what you said there, that, because Chrism is your teacher, that transfers into your family, and it's the same with me. And I also moved from a position of doing my practice, let's say, quietly on my own, to be much more open about it now with my family as well. And it's interesting what you said about the Tibetans, or not so much about the Tibetans, but you were saying, Julie, that, you didn't grow up with a practice because of, no religious, let's say, stuff around that. Whereas in my case, I had no practice when I came into my Kundalini Awakening because it had been enforced on me as a child, so I had rejected all that sort of thing, and I had absolutely no practice whatsoever. And I remember not long after my Kundalini Awakening getting this urge that maybe I should be doing something. And when I came to the Yahoo group and met with Chrism, and a practice began to be formed, I was very resistant to the Tibetans, hugely resistant, because I didn't like the idea at all of doing the same thing or doing things at a regular time, or, so I had a lot of resistance initially as well to a practice. So isn't it funny how we can sort of share so many interesting things that are similar, even though we come from different, Yeah, it's very cool. Do you, I suppose I'd like to just ask you, how do you find in your day-to-day work then, living with your Kundalini, with the Kundalini Awakening, how do you balance that? Do you find that since having a teacher that has become something that has become easier for you?
Only recently. The job that I do, I work from home, so it can be very demanding. So I have my job at home, my kids are home, my husband's home. So everything's here going on. So it had been difficult for me to get into a routine, which is something that I was longing to have, was a routine. I was feeling scattered. I couldn't remember, did I do the Tibetans this morning? Gosh, I don't know. Did I do this, this afternoon? I don't remember. So recently it's gotten a lot better. I've gotten myself into a routine from the time I get up in the morning until I go to bed. And a lot of what I do is in the morning when I first get up and then right before I go to bed. And then about partway through my day, I take some time for my practice. Kind of like one of those things, you need a break from work. So I do that. So probably like a morning, afternoon, evening, I've gotten into a rhythm. So that's helped out quite a bit. Prior to that, though, it was all over the place. So challenging.
Yeah. Okay, Julie, thank you so much for calling in. It's wonderful to hear your voice because you're on the groups and we often chat, and it's a gorgeous voice. It's so rich. I'm not familiar with all the different, the American accents in the different parts of the country, but it's gorgeous. Every time I hear people, like Fashchi, I love his voice. Your voice is gorgeous. It's so deep and rich, and I can feel.
I love his voice. Fashchi, I love your voice. It is.
I'm hoping Fashchi is going to come on. It is, isn't it? There's a vibration in it. Well, you have a beautiful voice. I can the vibration.
I don't think much of it myself, but thank you.
I don't think Fashchi thinks much of his either. That's the way it seems. He's certainly not going around going, I love my voice.
Too much smoking on my end too. That was one of the things that.
How is that going? Is it do you want to say a little bit about that, because so many of us have struggled with that, haven't we?
It's a struggle. It's a struggle. I mean, it's something I've done for so long, and.
Sorry, go ahead, Julie.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was just something that I've done for so long, and it has been a struggle. It's very much tied into my emotional body. And my emotional body, that's been the biggest issue. I've learned my ego is very protective of my emotional body. If there's one thing my ego is very protective of, it's that.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's tied very deeply into my emotional body. So it's been hard, a hard struggle, going back and forth with quitting and back to it again, quitting, back to it again. So a lot of back and forth.
Back and forth.
I know I'll get there. I've been going through a lot of the emotional body, and it's helping a lot.
With regard to smoking, because I started when I was 16 and I smoked right through, gave up occasionally, on and off. And at the beginning of my awakening, I went off, but then I went back on again, blah, 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 same thing. But the interesting thing, what you're saying about it being tied into the emotional body, I'm trying to think, would it be my psychological, anyway. The physical body actually gets over cigarettes, doesn't it, quite quickly, relatively. Mm-hmm. It's the other stuff that's where the difficulty is. So I totally understand what you're saying about if the emotional body is having the difficulty letting the cigarettes go.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, Julie, I hope you phone in other days during the show. So maybe yeah, now that you've done it, maybe do it again. It would be great to hear from you. And thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. That was wonderful.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Julie. I'll put you on blue, and if you want to go back or click off, whichever you want to do yourself, if you want to listen again on your PC or whatever, I'll let you decide there, okay? And thanks very much. That was wonderful to speak with Julie because, you know, we've been on the Yahoo group. I've known Julie on the Yahoo group from obviously since the very beginning. She joined in 2009, but I know that we've communicated there. The Yahoo group was very, very active in 2009, 2010, 2011, really before the big phenomena of Facebook. And then the Yahoo group, as Facebook increased, because it is a very instant communication, the Yahoo group also sort of started to change. The dynamic there began to change. So it's not as active as it used to be, but it's still a wonderful place to go. And if anybody is interested in joining that, there's a wonderful amount of conversations. When you join that group, the Yahoo group, you can see all of you get like 2005. I think 2005 was when Chrism began that group. And by 2006 and 2007, you can see all those years, and then January, February, March, and you can see all the number of posts that were done. And if you just went in there randomly and read some of the posts, they are really extremely informative. Even now, although those conversations are done, they can still be really, really helpful. And I've got two calls here now, and I'm wondering, that's really strange, 2 calls at the same number. Okay, I think this is probably Fashti. I'm going to go over and see.
Oh, there you go, using your. Oh, there you go, using your intuitive self now.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Did that impress you? Fashti, I'm looking. Have you got 2 lines going on there? Because on my studio,
let me do this. Let me do this. Let me hang up, and I'll call right back in.
No, you've got 2 lines. Okay.
Yes, that's the story of my life. 2 lines. Okay, I'll call right back.
Okay, Fashti. Okay, so there he is, and I can actually... Fashti? Okay, he's gone. That's cool. He'll ring back in again. So just about the Yahoo group, if you go and put in www.Kundalini Awakening Systems and then the number 1.com, you will go straight to Chrism's website. And on that, which Glenn Ola has provided, thank you, Glenn, and that website, on the left-hand side, there's a menu, and you get lots of articles, and there's a lot of information there about the safeties, about a practice, there's lots and lots of teachings. Up on the right-hand, on the left-hand side at the top, you will see articles. And when you press that, there are, teaching 01. And when you press 01, you will get 9 teachings there. Teaching 02, another 9 teachings, and you get all the topics. So please, feel free. Anybody can go and read that. But down at the bottom left-hand side of the menu, you will see Forum, Kundalini Awakening Systems Forum. And if you press that, you will be given a link to the forum, and that's where you can apply if you're interested. And then your request will be approved. And you just have to say, make a little sentence to introduce yourself, and then you will be approved. So any of you listening who haven't done that already, I'd invite you to perhaps go ahead and do that and see what you'll get. Oh, here is Fashti. I'm pressing the Hello,
hello everyone. Hello, Suntara. How are you?
I'm very good, Fasti. Thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, it's a ritual for me. I don't know if saying that I adopt rituals is a very positive thing because I think they're limiting at times, but this is one that I allow myself, and the Kundalini seems to enjoy it. I can see her basking in the radiance of all of the beautiful people here that have come on to listen and to actually participate. I have been sitting here in awe of all of the wonderful things that I've heard from you, of course, as we always are privileged to hear from you, Suntara, but Rosemary and Eileen and Julie. And may I say just now that when Julie came on, I heard her voice, and it was sort of a high-pitched little voice, and I said, oh, that's how I thought she'd sound. And then as she started to talk, her voice started to deepen, and I heard a richness there, and I said, oh, yeah, that's her. Wonder why I thought she would seem so, dainty and that type of thing, especially in lieu of all of the wonderful posts that she makes on Facebook. At any rate, I was touched by literally everything that was said, and I appreciate being given an opportunity here just to come on and say a few things about this. Was there any thing in particular you wanted me to address, Suntara?
No, not at all, Fasti. I mean, speak as you will, whatever you feel you'd like to share.
Okay.
If there's nothing you want to share, I can ask you questions, but I'm sure you off you go.
Mr. Motormouth himself, I'm sure I can come up with something.
yeah, please do, because you've got a lot, please do. I say no more. Continue, Fasti. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to, I heard Rosemary, I think, and Eileen, of course, speak about how things were before they found Chrism, or Chrism found them, or the Kundalini found us. I don't think that there is any mistake in the fact that we are all here, and we are all students in one way or another of Chrism. I think he's an extraordinary human being, and I, for one, feel blessed that I am able to actually be one of his private students. I'll tell you, it wasn't easy for me. And just to give a little background here, and we'll condense it. I come from a background where the main tenet was that the central or the most important part of ourselves, or the identity of ourselves, is soul, or the Atman, or whatever name you want to give that point of consciousness or point of awareness that comprises us as human beings or spiritual beings. At any rate, we learned different ways of leaving the physical state of consciousness and moving into the higher states of consciousness. Chrism and I have spoken about this at length. He says, oh, you do astral travel a lot. I said, no, it's actually called soul travel, and there's a difference. The astral travel uses the astral body, and soul travel uses any of the bodies that it chooses to place its attention on. Now, when I had come and met Chrism through a good friend of mine, Andrea Fetzko, who I was serving on one of the other Yahoo groups as an associate. It's what you do, Amelia, for us. Anyway, I was like her second in command.
Admin,
and so,
kind of, an admin.
Yes, that's the word. It's so simple, and I couldn't think of it. Yes, I became her associate admin on the group, and it specifically was dealing with Reiki, which is something that I had a hard time dealing with initially, but I moved into it. I realized that I had a talent for healing, and so I got really involved in it. Coming from the background that I had, it seemed as though it was something that I'm going to search for the word here. The first thing that came in my mind was blasphemous, but I don't think it actually reached that point of negativity. It was just preconceived notions of mine about other things outside of the teachings that I was studying. All across the world, we see a lot of people having problems now with others that have different religious beliefs than theirs. And so ultimately they become the wrong person and you become the right person. And of course that's hogwash. We all know it. But anyway, fast forward up to Andrea introducing me to Chrism. So when I initially met Chrism, I said, listen, I've had Kundalini. My Kundalini is awake, and I don't know. I don't see the point in this. Well, she said, well, just stick it out and see what happens. And this is about 7 years ago now. And I personally had mixed feelings about Chrism when I first met him, because I was fairly knowledgeable about spiritual life and various teachings that come from the East, mainly Tibet and India, through the path that I was on at that time. So I said, well, I'm going to give Chrism a chance here, and I'm going to, do this Shaktipat thing, whatever this is. And I had my first experience, and it wasn't really a pronounced experience. It was more or less feeling the energy of the Kundalini as it sort of circulated throughout my body. And I said, well, let's stick it out. Maybe this is just a fluke because, I felt this before during various attunements in Reiki, and so maybe this is just that type of thing. But as I got a chance to study Chrism's teachings, I started to feel differently about it. Not that they were different from what I'd been practicing, but yet he had put it in such a plain and down-to-earth way that it touched the core of awareness within me. And I allowed that to grow. I found it difficult up until the last moment to actually become a student of Chrism's, because most men, and I'm going to say this and I hope I don't get a barrage of negative emails, have a hard time with surrender. I had already done so with the path that I'd been to. We had this unapproachable master that wrote to us and sent us out monthly discourses, and I actually became a member of the clergy there. As I've said before, was given the authority to be a spiritual aid, which meant someone that listened to someone who was going through particular problems and gave advice. I also became an initiator, so I thought that, I was pretty much advanced over a new student coming into the spiritual path and exploring Kundalini, but was I wrong? Yes, I was wrong. Apparently, my ego was still a close friend of mine, and it was there when I came into KAS teachings, and it remained for a while, much to my sadness. At any rate, ultimately, I started to really give these teachings of Chrism's an honest go of it. And through this, I was able to not only have a spinal sweep or this grand experience that happens when the Kundalini does indeed go into the crown chakra. I was able to learn the finer points that Chrism reveals consistently throughout his teachings.
Don't be too hard on yourself.
I'm trying not to. Was I not hard enough? Let me just say, I was really a crumb. I was really the worst possible person.
No, but when you're saying,
am I doing better now?
Your ego is still present and all of that, unfortunately. Yeah, sure, that was just part. I mean, I think sometimes, I suppose we are so, this surrender thing, we hear a lot, don't we, Fashti, about the dangers of surrendering to a teacher, and we tend to forget that we really are already surrendering to the ego. We surrender to something, and it's just, we feel safer surrendering to the known, what you're speaking about, the familiar patterns of our mind, rather than what you're speaking about, which is really, the mystery of our teacher in what is revealed to us, isn't it? As that becomes, Yes.
Well, I used to think that the annihilation of the ego was the way, and I don't know if indeed that is as much as subjugating the ego, because somehow, our friend, the ego is necessary for us as human beings.
I agree.
It gives us identity, the individualization of our personalities. So it does come with some positive aspects. It's simply not a good boss. Neither is the mind.
No, I agree. But it's like it enables us, though, because sometimes our ego can be our teacher in the sense of what not to do.
Yes.
It's that very catalyst that enables us to surrender into the other,
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm sorry?
Sorry. I was going to say so anyway.
Oh, yes. So I'm going to try to abbreviate this. I started to talk and enjoyed the process, but we'll make it short. So this ego thing I was working with, because when I approached Chrism, I said, listen, I've been on this spiritual path for 35 years or so at that time, and I said, I'm ready to become my own master. And I said, if you can get me to the point where I can go through complete realization, I will follow you and I will stick with you until that time comes. Well, Chrism said, certainly, Fasti, I'll be happy to help you with that, but I can't promise anything. And I said, okay, well, we'll stick it out and see what happens. And here I am. Eileen was one of the first people that welcomed me, and I always say that because that was so important for me. Because, when you enter into something like this, especially on the Yahoo groups where there isn't the constant interaction that you get on Facebook, it was sort of a mysterious thing. So I'm forever grateful to her for her gesture of friendship. Chrism as well has been a perfect friend. Has been a best friend throughout this process. Many of you who have heard me speak on this particular forum have heard that I recently went through something which is, I guess, a major step within minor steps. And that just means that there was a cohesiveness between me and the Kundalini within me. There was a final agreement that we're going to work together. I'm going to follow your lead, Kundalini, and I'm going to, from time to time, ask you questions. I'm going to challenge you. But ultimately, you see more than I see, so I'm going to finally agree with what you say. And that's really what I have gained throughout all of this. I was a top-down activation, and Chrism talks about that. And then finally, as I told him, I did it the right way. And I had the experience through the practice of the Tibetans and the safeties. Many people think that the safeties are just a code of conduct. It's so much more than that. It's sort of like somehow Chrism has synthesized and been able to isolate the teachings that flow from Godhead or divine source, what we call the Holy Spirit or the divine Kundalini. He has been able to break this into components that we all can understand. Yet these are significant behavior modifications that allow us to achieve those spiritual heights that we want to. And I am so grateful to be in the company of such wonderful female students of Chrisms. As I said, men have a hard time with surrender, and especially addressing another guy as master or teacher. Guys seem to have been... What's that?
Women have a hard time with it too.
Oh, if you say so. I mean,
it doesn't come any easier. I don't think it does, but you know.
Well, I have to say this because it just popped into my head. I heard Eileen say something to the effect that she doesn't have certain experiences, inner experiences, and the phenomena that a lot of us report. But I have to say to her, based on her commitment and dedication and willingness to serve Kundalini, she's a heck of a lot further along than she might give herself credit for. And I say this because I've experienced both sides of it, giving complete service and not giving service because I felt, my little friend, the ego, came in and said, what are you doing, man? You're giving all your time. I mean, these people don't care. So I had to learn that it really doesn't matter what we encounter on the outer. No matter what we say that is significant of a nature that is a teaching of the Kundalini, there is a part or a portion of the human being that hears what we're saying and retains it. So to those of us who are going out and doing these talks and giving these showings of the film, you are doing a great service to mankind and the collective consciousness that exists here as humankind, because it goes in through the ear and it goes into the consciousness, and there it stays until such time as the person who has heard these teachings is ready to accept them as truth. And I think I'm going to shut up.
No, that's very true, Fasci. And I mean, talking about the phenomena of themselves are not important. There are so many people who get caught up in the phenomena and they don't move, they get stuck there. And they get, obsessed with their phenomena, and because of being in that place, they don't move into the place, we'll say, where Eileen is, or, phenomena can be a wonderful distraction and a detour. So, it's not important. It's not. They just are.
Yes.
Fasci, thanks, as always. I love your voice, and so does
Thank
Julie.
you, dear.
You've got a fan club. Okay, we've got less than 10 minutes, so I'll probably start winding it. We didn't do too badly now, I think. We're 2 hours at it, so that's good. So thank you, Fasci, very, very much.
Blessings and grace to all of you. Thank you so much, Suntara. I'm gonna get off the phone now.
Okay,
thank you,
Fasci.
Thank you so much.
Okay, that's Fasci gone. Okay, thank you, Fasci. And again, thank you, Julie. Julie said when Fasci was speaking about her voice, and she said, I'm just finding it here now. She said it took her a little while to become comfortable. And, she's shy, so it took her a little bit to become comfortable. And I can relate to that, Julie. And thank you so much. And I really do hope that, that you've done it once and that maybe you will join us again in future shows and contribute, because it was wonderful to hear from you. And I'm just, before we continue or finish really, because we're coming to the end, I'm going to go over again to Rosemary. Eileen is here. I go to Eileen. Hi, Eileen.
Hi. I want to thank Fasci for his wonderful words and his wisdom, and I too love his voice. And he's a wonderful
speaker. Listeners. Okay, we'll be finishing up, Eileen. So is there anything you'd like to say? Have you got, I think you have those websites for us, but if there's anything you'd like to say further about being, yes?
Well, I just want to thank you, Suntara, for the show. It's been wonderful. I like hearing different people, and it's just really been nice. I do miss Chrism, his voice, his teachings, but I feel we honor him by being able to speak to the fact that we respect him as a teacher, and we feel that he has really helped us. So anyway, I do want to mention the different groups, the Facebook groups. One is Kundalini Awakening ! Another one is Kundalini Awakening Systems number 1, and there's a Kundalini Awakening Systems number 2. We have a lot of Chrism has a number of other groups. He has a Kundalini group, a private one, and a public one. And the best thing to do on Facebook is if you type in Kundalini Awakening, many of his groups will come up, and then you'll eventually find them. And as Suntara said with the Yahoo group, you can go into the main site, and if you have trouble, just ask on the Facebook group, and we can send you there. But other than that, thank you so much, everyone. And now, is Rosemary going to talk about the seminar?
Yes, I'll put Rosemary on for that. Eileen, is there anything you wish to say about it? Do you want to give the Facebook connection again?
Oh, Facebook connection, Kundalini Awakening ! Kundalini Awakening. I'm sorry?
For the seminars, Eileen. There's a page for the seminar on Facebook, isn't there?
Oh, the seminar. Okay, I'm sorry. Kundalini seminars and events with Chrism. And like I said, if you type in Kundalini seminars, it'll probably come up. So, yeah, there's there's a lot there, a lot of information. So anyone's welcome, and I hope to see some people at the seminar.
I bet you will. And I mean, people can connect with you too on Facebook, Eileen, can't they? If they want to ask any questions, you'd welcome a question in your inbox or a question on that actual Facebook page, whatever suits people. Yeah.
My page, are you asking? I'm having trouble hearing you. You're asking for my page?
I'm saying people can connect with you on Facebook and send you a message on Facebook, can't they?
Yes, yes. And it's just under my name. It's if you go under Kundalini Seminars and Events with Chrism, you can contact either myself or Rosemary. And my Facebook is Eileen Laurel, Loro. The first name is Eileen, Eileen. So yes, I would love to be contacted by people. Thank you, Suntara.
You're welcome, and thank you, Eileen, for your contribution and for everything you do and for the work you're doing on the seminar with Rosemary. And just a short time now, it's amazing, isn't it, how, 6 months ago it seemed such a long way off, and now it's approaching. So you must be excited and really looking forward to going.
It is. And one other thing I want to say quickly. Rosemary has been showing the film and doing talks and visiting with people, and it's like Fashi says, every time you do that, or every time she does that, it does reach people, and they may not be interested at the particular time, but that seed is planted. And it's a matter, and this is what I have discovered too, you plant seeds, and then when the person is ready, and Shakti is ready to come to them, they at least have heard the word, they've had some experience, and I want to thank Rosemary for doing all that she's doing. Oh my gosh, I think I had 3 movie screenings 3 years ago, and she's up to about 15 or 20 now. It's amazing. It's amazing.
That is amazing. I've shown them in Ireland as well before seminars, and I was blown away by, and you're right, it's amazing the people who come and what they receive, and people receive in different ways. But it's amazing how many that she's done and how she's traveling. So
I know.
A wonderful service that she's doing, indeed. So thanks, Eileen, and I'll go over to her now. Hi, Rosemary.
Hi there, Amelia. And
hi.
Both, thank you for your kind words. And it is a community effort. And the fact that Eileen is sharing with you about Facebook, she does a lot on the technology and here for us, and it's very helpful. And we're all, Eileen, we're all benefiting from that. And for the details of the seminar in about 7 weeks, my email address, rosemaryg@usinternet.com, 651-452-3161 by phone. I welcome phone calls. And September 27, 28, 9 to 5, here in St. Paul in the city of Egan. We have rooms available at the place where the seminar will be taking place. So, and Eileen, what she's preparing there on Facebook has some additional information for you. So feel welcomed all to join us.
Thanks, Rosemary. You're an awesome team. You're an awesome team. So listen, goodbye to you. Thank you very, very much. We'll see you again next week. And Eileen, and everybody in the chat room, thank you very much. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Sashi. Thank you, all the listeners in the archive. I hope you'll enjoy the show. And we'll talk to you all next week when Chrism will be here again. Thank you, everybody. Bye for now.
Preisabsturz beim Mediamarkt. Nur jetzt. Lagerräumung in der Computer- und Smartphone-Abteilung. Markenlaptops, PCs, Tablets, Smartphones und Zubehör. Drastisch reduziert. Preisabsturz. Nur heute und morgen. Im Markt und im Netz. Hauptsache, ihr habt Spaß. Mediamarkt.